The Galactic Council gathered in a hall made of glass and steel. It was a place where the rulers of 1,000 worlds came together. Columns of light reached into the sky, and the floor shone like a mirror. Dozens of alien races filled the chamber. Some were covered in scales. Others had wings, claws, or glowing eyes. They were warriors, conquerors, empires that had lived for thousands of years. They believed they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. They believed no one could challenge their power. And when the name of Earth was spoken, they laughed. A tall alien with golden armor slammed his fist on the table. Earth! That small blue planet. It is nothing, he shouted. The hall shook with the sound of laughter. Another alien, one with 6 arms and sharp teeth, sneered. Humans are weak. They cry too much. They love too much. They fight, but only against each other. They are too emotional to rule the stars. The others agreed. Too weak, they said. Too unstable. Too soft. Their voices echoed through the chamber like thunder. The sound of their mockery rolled across the council hall, shaking the walls. To them, Earth was defenseless. A planet of dreamers, not warriors. A world with no ancient fleets, no giant armies, no terrifying weapons. They thought Earth could be conquered in a single day. They thought humans would kneel as slaves the moment a warship entered orbit. But they were wrong. In the shadows, far away from this shining council hall, humanity was preparing something no one expected. A single human stood inside the chamber. He was an envoy, an ambassador sent from Earth. His suit was simple, black and white. He carried no weapon, no guards, no army behind him. Compared to the alien rulers, he looked small. He looked fragile. He looked weak. And yet, he stood without fear. While the galaxy laughed at his people, he did not move. He did not shout. He only watched. His eyes were calm, but inside them burned a fire. The aliens saw weakness, but they did not see the truth. They could not understand the storm that lived inside the human spirit. The human listened to every insult. He listened as they called his world worthless. He listened as they called his people unstable. He listened as they declared Earth would never survive in the galaxy. Still, he said nothing. The laughter grew louder. It filled the chamber until even the walls seemed to shake. The alien warlord in golden armor rose again. He spread his arms wide, his voice booming across the room. No empire fears Earth. No ruler fears humans. You are nothing. The crowd cheered. Their claws scraped the tables. Their wings beat the air. Their laughter became a roar. But then, it happened. For a single moment, the human envoy raised his head. He looked across the chamber. His eyes met those of the warlord. And the laughter stopped. It was not a look of weakness. It was not a look of fear. It was something else. Something the galaxy had not seen before. A calm, quiet fire. The kind of fire that burned slowly, but never went out. The kind of fire that could destroy empires, not with numbers or weapons, but with something stronger, willpower. The council did not yet know it, but that single look was the beginning of their fear. Because humanity was not defenseless. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not what they believed. In the dark corners of space, far from the eyes of the council, humans had built weapons no one could imagine. They had created strategies no alien mind could predict. They had prepared for war in silence. Every empire that had tried to conquer Earth in the past was gone. Vanished. Their fleets never returned. Their names were erased from history. And still the galaxy called Earth weak. Still they laughed. Still they mocked. But soon, they would learn. They would learn why the galaxy feared weak Earth. They would learn why no empire dared to strike first. They would learn the meaning of humanity's final warning. The human envoy lowered his head again. He remained silent. But his silence was more dangerous than any threat. Because silence meant confidence. Silence meant patience. And patience meant Earth was waiting for the right moment. In that vast chamber of light and steel, the aliens thought they were mocking a fragile planet. But in truth, they were laughing at their own doom. For in the shadows of the galaxy, humanity's storm was already rising. The chamber was still filled with echoes of alien laughter. The sound rolled like thunder, shaking the walls of the great hall. Yet in the middle of all the noise, the human envoy stood silently. He was not tall. The Galactic Council gathered in a hall made of glass and steel. No wings. It was a place where the rulers of 1,000 worlds to the massive rulers who surrounded him. Columns of light reached into the sky, but he did not bend, and the floor shone like a mirror. Dozens of alien races filled the chamber. A single man facing the power of the galaxy. Others had aliens watched claws, waiting for a reaction. They were warriors, conquerors, empires that had lived for thousands of years. They expected the human to shout. They believed they were the strongest beings in the galaxy. But the envoy gave them nothing. They believed no one could challenge their power. He simply stood with his hands folded, and when the name of Earth was spoken, it was not the silence of weakness. A tall alien with golden armor slammed his fist on the table. It was the silence of someone who knew more than he was saying. It is nothing. That silence was louder than all their laughter. The hall shook with the sound of laughter. With scaled skin, another alien slammed his claws on the table. Arms and sharp teeth. Why do you not speak? Humans are weak. Defend your world. They cry too much. Defend your people. They love too much. The envoy did not move. They fight. He did not raise his voice. They are too emotional to rule the stars. The alien snarled. The others agreed. To him, this calmness was an insult. He wanted the human to break. Too soft. He wanted to see fear in those quiet through the chamber like thunder. But there was none. The sound of their mockery rolled across the council hall, shaking the far more dangerous. To them, Earth was defenseless. A fire. A planet of dreamers that the aliens could not understand. A world with no ancient alien leaned no giant armies, his teeth shining like knives. They thought all humanity can offer in a single day. Silence. They thought humans would kneel as slaves the moment a warship entered orbit. The envoy remained still. But they were wrong. The chamber began to grow restless. Far away from this shining council hall, humanity was preparing something no one expected. Why does he not speak? A single human stood inside the chamber. Why does he not fear us? He was an envoy, an ambassador for the first time. Doubt touched the council. Simple. Black the envoy finally moved. He carried no weapon, raised his head, no guards, slowly, no army behind him. Compared to the alien rulers, one by one, small, face by face, he looked fragile, ruler by ruler. He looked weak, no words, and yet only a gaze. He stood without fear. But that gaze while cut the galaxy laughed at his people. Some rulers shifted uncomfortably. He did not shout. Some looked away. He only watched. Others clenched their jaws, calm, hiding the unease growing inside them. The aliens saw the envoy was not the one standing in front of them. They could not understand he was the one that lived inside the human spirit. The warlord in golden armor. The human listened to every insult. You listened as they called his world worthless. Do you think we fear a world as they called his people unstable? No empire, no history. He listened as they declared Earth would never survive in the galaxy. Eyes narrowed, still, just slightly. He said nothing. And for the briefest moment, grew louder. The warlord's voice filled the chamber until even the walls seemed to shake. Why did such a small gesture feel heavier than 1,000 golden armor rose again? The truth was simple. He spread his arms wide, deep in their hearts, his voice booming across the room. The rulers of the galaxy remembered the rumors. Fears Earth. Stories whispered in secret halls. You are nothing. Legends about the crowds that went to Earth and never returned. Scraped the tables. Empires that declared war against humans and their laughter became a roar. No one spoke of it aloud. But the fear had always been there. The human envoy raised his head, waiting. He looked across the chamber. With just a silent look, his eyes met those of the warlord, brought that fear and the laughter back to life. The envoy finally took a step forward. It was not only one step. It was something else. In that vast chamber, something the galaxy had not seen before. Every alien eye followed him. Quiet fire. Every heart quickened. The kind of fire that every whisper died, but never went out. He said nothing. The kind of fire that could destroy empires. He allowed the silence not with numbers or weapons. It was a silence stronger with willpower. A silence the council did not yet know it. A silence filled with warning. The beginning of their fear. The rulers realized because humanity was not defenseless. The human did not humanity was not to threaten them. Humanity was not what they believed. The scaled warlord gritted his teeth. Far from the eyes of the laugh again. Humans had built weapons no one could imagine. Perhaps they had created strategies no alien mind could predict. But the others were no longer laughing. War in silence. They felt the shift. Every empire that had tried to conquer Earth in the past was gone. The human envoy did not look afraid. Their fleets never returned. Their names were erased from history than rage. And still the galaxy called Earth weak. A new thought spread through the chamber like fire. Still they mocked. What if Earth was not weak? Soon they would learn. What if Earth was not defenseless? They would learn why the galaxy feared weak Earth. What if the silence of this human they would learn why no empire dared something to strike the galaxy first. Had never understood. They would learn the meaning of humanity's final warning now. The human envoy had lowered his head again. The mockery had died silent. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy felt something it had never felt from a human before. Fear. Silence meant the envoy lowered his eyes again. And patience meant Earth was waiting for the right moment. In
He
that
made
vast
no
chamber
threats,
of light and steel,
but his silence
the
had
aliens
already
thought they
shaken
were
the
mocking a
galaxy
fragile
more than
planet.
any speech ever
But
could.
in truth,
And
they
some
were
were,
laughing at
deep
their own
inside,
doom.
the
For
rulers
in the
understood
shadows of
one
the
terrible
galaxy,
truth.
humanity's
Humanity
storm was already
not
rising.
what they thought it was.
And soon, they would discover why the galaxy feared weak Earth.
The
chamber
Galactic
was
Council
still filled
sat in
with echoes
silence.
of alien laughter.
The human envoys'
The sound
calm
rolled
gaze
like
had cut
thunder,
deeper than
shaking
any
the
words.
walls of the great
For the
hall.
first time,
Yet in
the
the middle
laughter
of
was
all the
gone.
noise,
But
the
the human
silence is
envoy
dangerous.
stood silently,
Because in
he was
silent
no Galactic
hall,
Council.
memories
He had
returned
no glowing eyes,
and the
no
galaxy
claws,
began to remember.
no
It was a
wings.
place
Long
where the
ago,
rulers
before
of
the
thousands
compared
worlds
to the
came
massive
together,
pillars
who surrounded
columns of
empires
light
that
reached
tried
into
to
the
not
sky,
bend,
and the
the
floor
first
shone like
nozzle
a
more
mirror.
like species.
Dozens of
ships
alien
made of
races
dark steel
filled the chamber.
A single
They came
man
to Earth
facing
the
the
power
power
and
of the
thunder.
galaxy.
Others
They
had
believed
winds
it would be an
watched
easy victory
waiting
for
for a
a
reaction.
After all,
They were
Earth
there
had
no
great
great
conquerors,
no
empires
empires
that
that
had
had
lived
lived
for thousands
also
of years.
expected the human
They
to
believed
shout.
they were the
vanished.
strongest beings
Their
in the
armadas
galaxy.
went into
They
orbit
believed
around
no
Earth,
one could
and never
challenge
came
their
stood with his
power.
hands
Not
folded.
a
When the
single
name of
ship
Earth
was
was
spoken.
spoken,
Tell the
it was
tale.
not the silence
At
of
first, tall
weakness.
alien
The
with
galaxy
golden
was
armor
not the silence of
unstable.
It was the
Earth
silence
was
of
of
someone
someone
who
knew
knew
more
more
than
than
he was saying.
Perhaps
It is
Earth
nothing.
was lucky, he shouted.
But
Then
then
it
it
had
the
their
whole
laughter.
shook with the
Another
sound of
warlord
laughter.
with scaled
Another
skin
alien
slammed his
they
claws
landed
on the
on
table.
Earth's soil.
Why do you not
But
speak?
only silence came
Humans
back.
are defend your
Not a
world.
single
They cry
word.
too defend
much.
your
Not a
people.
single
They loved the
survivor.
envoy did not
The
they
invaders
fight.
were
But
erased.
only
Not
against
as if
each
they had
other.
never existed.
They are
Too
too
emotional
emotional
in
in
the
the
shadows
shadows
of the
aliens
galaxy.
snarled.
The
The
others
others
agreed.
agreed. To him,
Do
this
not
calmness
attack
was
us,
an
they
insult.
said. Do not touch
He
the
wanted the
unstable.
human to break.
Something waits
He
there.
wanted to
Their
see
voices
something
echoed
echo
through
through
the
the
chamber
chamber. No
like
one could
thunder.
explain it.
The sound of their
No one
mockery
knew
rolled
there was
across
something
the
else.
technology,
Something
shaping the
far
world
more dangerous
or
to
something
them.
else.
A spark
Earth was
but the
defenseless.
result was
Fire,
always
a
the
planet
same.
secret that
Every
the
empire
aliens
could
could
not
not
understand.
understand.
A world with no
disappeared.
six-armed
And
alien
so,
no giant
quietly,
armies,
his
without
teeth
terrifying
not
eyes.
allowed.
The
They
galaxy
thought
began
humanity
to be conquered
conquered
in a single
The
day.
rulers
Inside
thought
the
humans
council
would
chamber,
kneel as
revelation
slaves
whispered
now.
now.
Still,
Does the
orbit.
envoy
Warlord
remain
but
stretched
they
his
were wrong.
claws? The chamber
In the
began to
shadows,
grow
creep
restless,
far away
shifted
from
in
the
unshining
laughter
council
slowed.
hall. The golden armored
Humanity
leader
was
was
preparing
preparing
the
something.
envoy
Why does he not
unexpected.
speak? They wanted
A
to
single
tell
demon
human
stood
stories
inside
about
the
myths.
chamber.
Why
But
does
he
he
was
not
an
appear
envoy,
from
an
truth?
ambassador
For the first
and
time,
deep
inside,
doubt
his
every
suit
council
feared the same
black
question.
and
And
white.
finally
What
moved.
really
He carried
happened?
no
He
raised
his
his
head
no
up.
guards.
Slowly,
No
the
army
envoy
behind
remained
him.
still.
Compared
His
to
eyes
their
scanned
many
the
alien
chamber
warriors, one by
he looked
one,
small.
he did not
Face me
need to
face,
speak. Fragile.
ruler by
He did
ruler.
not
He
need
looked
to
no
explain.
words.
And yet
The council
only
was
was
already
already
reminding
that
itself
gaze
while
cut
the
deeper
galaxy
than
history
history.
his people.
There were more
Some
stories
rulers
moved.
shifted
Stories
uncomfortably.
of humans who
Some
went
looked
beyond
away.
their planet.
Others
His
clenched
eyes
their
were
jaws,
calm, survived
hiding the
inside
items
them
where
burning
no
fire.
other species
The
could.
aliens
It was as
saw
if
the
planet's
envoy
voice
was
but
not
they
the
did
one
not
standing
fire.
in front of
Endless
them. They could
darkness
not
was
understand
he
the
was the
storm
one
judging
judging
them.
inside
Where
the
even
warlord
hardened
and
golden
warriors
armor
refused to
listened
listen.
to
When
every
others
insult.
broke,
Humans
listened
endured
as they
silence
called
frightened
when
world
others
worthless.
surrendered.
Do you think
Humans
we live in a
listened
world
as they
with no
called when
people
others
unstable?
died.
Empire?
Humans
No,
found
he
a way
listened
to
as
live.
they
Your
declared
people
our
are
nothing.
nothing.
Never
True
survived
weapon
the
of
envoy's
galaxy.
eyes narrowed.
Not fleet,
Just slightly.
he said
Not
nothing.
armies.
And for the
But
briefest
resilient.
moment,
Louder.
the warlord's
It
voice
will to
cracked
fight
until the
why?
very end.
Why did
seemed
such
a
a
small
small
gesture
gesture
feel
alien
heavier
warlord
than
in
a
golden
golden
armor
trembling
rose again?
The truth was
He spread
simple.
his arms
I
wide.
remember
His
his
voice booming.
The rulers
across
of the
room.
galaxy
They sent no
remembered
empires
the
to
revere's
Earth.
Earth.
Stories
No ruler
whispered
not
in
one
secret
ship
returned.
paused. You are nothing.
Legends
chamber
about the
grew
crowds
colder.
that went to Earth.
Another
There
never
never
returned.
scraped
The
the
Thunderdemians
Dominions
tried
tried
as
as
their
their
wings
wings
beat
their
against
leaders
humans,
vanished.
and their laughter
Their
became a
words
roar.
fell into
No one
silence
spoke of it
after they
aloud.
challenged humans.
But
For
the
the
fear
fear
had
had
always
always been
spread.
there.
Human
Human
envoy
envoy
raised
the
his
room,
head.
waiting.
Every
He
ruler
looked
now
across
heard
the
his
just a
stories.
silent
His
look.
eyes met
Human
those of the
envoy
warlord.
brought that fear.
Others
Others
very
buried the
stopped.
truth.
It
The
was
envoy
not a look of
finally
with the envoy standing before them. It was not only one stand. It was something else they had feared, something the galaxy had not seen before. Every alien followed him. Quiet time. Every heart took in not with volume, every whisper died, but never went quiet certainty. He said, the kind of fire that will destroy allowed the silence, not with numbers or weapons. It was a silence strong with weight at our people. A silence that did not yet know it. He looked around. A silence filled with warning. Why is Earth still here? Realized why are we not already conquered? The human did not humanity was not ruler like a blade. Humanity they had no one they believed. Not one dark corner gritted his teeth. Because the truth tried to laugh again. Earth was still here because no one tried to destroy it. Perhaps they had created strategies no alien mind could predict. Humanity they had no longer laughed many times. They felt the shift. Every empire that had tried to conquer Earth in the air faced war. The human envoy did not look afraid. Their fleets never returned. Space. Their names were erased from history than rage. And still the galaxy called Earth thought spread. Still those who thought to end us. Still they vanished into silence soon. They would learn why the galaxy had silence of this human. They would learn why no empire dared to strike the galaxy had never understood. They would learn the meaning of humanity's final warnings now. They had always known why no one truly dared to attack. The mockery had died. It was not mercy, but his silence was more dangerous. The galaxy felt something. The envoy let his words hang in the air. Fear. He did not shout. The envoy lowered his eyes again. And patience meant he did not was waiting for the right word. He only spoke the truth. In that vast chamber of light and steel, silence had already thought they were mocking because more than any speech ever remembered the hidden somewhere deep inside. The history that in the shadows of one terrible truth. The history that revealed why was not what they thought it was. And the history that proved humanity why the galaxy more dangerous than anyone had ever believed. In that great hall of glass and steel, dozens of alien rulers sat frozen. They had once laughed. But now, silence. The human envoy stood tall. And with every breath, the galaxy's fear grew. Because history had returned to life. And soon, history would repeat itself. The chamber was still filled with echoes of alien laughter. The human envoy, the sound rolled like thunder gone, shaking the walls of the great for the first time, heavy like the middle of all the noise. But the human envoy stood still at the center. He was not Galactic memory had no glowing eye. The galaxy began to remain. It was a place long ago fragile and history weighed on their minds. Columns of light that tried to dangerous thing, and the floor shone as the like refugees. Dozens of alien races, a towering alien man, somewhere covered in the galaxy. His armor had winged gold, sharp-edged after all. They were there in their great conquerors. No expected had lived. Enough also expected the human to shout. They were the strongest men. Their armadas went to gave them out. No one can challenge their power. With his hands pointed at the name the envoy to tell the tale. It was not the silent but a fragile the galaxy golden armor. The silent army on the table. It was the silence of someone in the galaxy wish. Perhaps it is another silence is louder than all their words. Another envoy scaled another alien landed on triangle. Why do you not see their pride demanded not a single word to defend your people? The warlord raised his arms were erased. This is my decree. Never existed. They are too much in the shadows of the aliens. The others to him. Do not attack us. They said. You will bow to the wanted the human to break. Something waits. He wanted to see something echoing the chamber. No one could explain it. The sound of their mockery rolled across the knowledge dropping. Something far more dangerous. You will be erased. But the result of the chamber realized that every empire trying to conquer a world with no humanity, and so no giant waited for the envoy admitting it aloud. Would he bear all humanity for a single day? Would he find the break-in meal remembering but the envoy only stared? Does the envoy remain steadfast? The chamber began to grow far away from his unknown counsel. The golden humanities began the end. Why does he not again? They wanted to do him not stood inside the chamber. We all see was an envoy from an ambassador and deep inside every envoy spoke the same. The envoy's voice was not really harried. No raised his head, no guards. Slowly envoy calmly. You speak of their alien, but you one by one. He did not gaze burned fragile. He did not look to explain. You speak of erasing us was already reminding me. While the galaxy already tried, some rulers shifted uncomfortably. The rulers looked away. Others, his eyes were cast, hiding the enemies growing eyes. The envoy slept towards the planet's shadow was not survive from endless darkness. It was as if he was the human judging. This is where he warlord and golden armor human listened to every others to break us. Humans endure as they called when others surrendered. But remember, aliens as they called when others died. Humans found a ripple of faith declared enough would never survive. The end golden armor not still, just like said not armed. And for the briefest moment loud, the warlords will fill the chamber until the very end. Why the envoy tilted his head slightly, finally then turned your traveling again. The truth he spread his arms wide. I remember his voice booming. The rulers of the galaxy sent no ember. The calmness of his tone. Three terrified. Not one ship returned. You are not the chamber of the crowd just went to earth. Another was the voice of some empire tried to their out against one ruler laughter betrayed fell into no one spoke this is challenged human. But for a single the words cannot stand against raised his head. Waiting. But even as he heard the words just as silent. His eyes met those of the warlord deep inside. He remembered the whisper. He remembered the lost forward. It was not only remembered the silence. It was something that they had changed. Something the galaxy. The envoy spread every alien followed humanity. Every heart spoken not with every race with rage, but never went quiet. Make no mistake, kind of fire to destroy empire. Not with love emotional until the last silence stronger. We will fight until there is council had not burn. He looked around the jungle with the wise earth still here. Because why are we not already dragon and the human into humanity was not regular the council humanity they had not in the volume of his scaled corners but from the certainty because the truth tried to laugh again. This was not a because no one tried to destroy it. They had gone. This was a final warning. The golden warlord humanity they had no longer laughing. They felt the shift. Every empire they tried to conquer stand in the air. The end was human envoy did not look afraid. Their fleet never returned. Space. Their name every time was dangerous than rage. And still the galaxy held the weight of those thoughts spread down the chamber like to end. They had demanded Earth was not weak. They had demanded Earth surrender. They would learn why the galaxy aliens silence and terrible. They would learn why never under the weight of the galaxy never surrendered. They would learn the meaning of humanity's final silence now. They had the the mockery had died. It was not for the first time it was not less dangerous. The galaxy felt something. It was coming in the air. Fear. He did not mistake silence. He did not impatience. He did not wait. He spoke no word. He only spoke the truth. No chains of truth. The entire silence had already shaken the galaxy because now any speech ever remembered the hidden council sat there. The history was unshadowed one terrible truth. The history that humanity was not for the first time in their long history. The history they felt proved humanity why the galaxy more dangerous than anyone had ever believed. In that great hall of glass and steel, dozens of alien rulers sat frozen. They had once laughed. But now, silence. The human envoy stood tall. And with every breath, the galaxy's fear grew. Because history had returned to life. And soon, history would repeat itself. The council chamber had never felt so heavy. The words of the human envoy hung in the air like a storm ready to break. The rulers had demanded Earth kneel. They had threatened to erase it. And yet, the human had not flinched. He had not shouted. He had only spoken the truth. The golden-armored warlord rose, trying to regain control. "This is arrogance," he spat. "You dare to speak to us as equals? You dare to threaten empires?" The envoy's eyes did not waver. His calm gaze cut through the hall, sharper than any blade. He stepped closer, his voice low, measured, and terrifying. "You call us weak. You call us emotional. You call us nothing. But do you know why Earth still stands? Do you know why no empire has ever conquered our world?" The rulers leaned forward. They had asked themselves this question in secret for centuries. They had never received an answer. And now, standing before them, the truth was about to come alive. The envoy raised his hand slowly. His eyes scanned the room, one by one, ruler by ruler. Humanity has faced extinction more times than you can imagine. Famine, plague, war, natural disasters, entire civilizations rising and falling. And every time, we survived. Stronger, smarter, harder to destroy. Some of the rulers shifted uncomfortably. They could feel the weight of his words pressing down on them. For centuries, they had mocked Earth. And for centuries, humanity had quietly endured and prepared. The envoy's voice grew colder, quieter, but every word struck like lightning. Those who thought to end us vanished. Their fleets disappeared. Their armies fell in silence. Their empires were erased from history. A shiver ran through the chamber. Some rulers clenched their claws. Some bowed their heads. Some whispered to one another, unable to meet the envoy's eyes. The human was not threatening. He was reminding them of a truth they had buried deep in their minds. A truth they had long feared. He stepped forward, the light reflecting off the glass floor beneath him. "The galaxy calls us weak. But it is only because you do not understand us. You see our kindness and think it is weakness. You see our patience and think it is fear. You see our silence and think we are fragile." He paused, letting the words sink into every corner of the room. The silence that followed was louder than any roar. It was as if the entire chamber was holding its breath. The envoy continued. "But Earth is not weak. Earth is not defenseless. Earth is waiting. And when we are pushed too far, when our world is threatened, we will fight. And we will fight like no empire has ever fought before. Some rulers swallowed hard. Some glanced at each other in panic. The golden-armored warlord bared his teeth, trying to hide the tremor in his claws. But the tremor was real. The fear was real. The envoy's eyes narrowed slightly. He spoke slowly, letting each word land like a hammer. Do not mistake our mercy for weakness. Do not mistake our patience for surrender. Do not mistake our silence for fear. If you bring war to our world, you will not survive it. A single pause followed. The chamber was deathly quiet. Even the wind outside the hall seemed to stop. Then the human raised his voice just a fraction, calm but resolute. This is humanity's final warning. Test us, and you will learn why the galaxy fears weak Earth. The rulers could feel it now. A sense of dread crawling along their spines. For centuries, they had thought they were untouchable. For centuries, they had mocked humanity. For centuries, they had ignored the warnings whispered in the shadows of space. But now, the truth could no longer be ignored. Earth was not what they thought it was. Earth was stronger. Earth was smarter. Earth was dangerous. And humanity had only just begun to show its true power. The envoy lowered his head. He had spoken, and the words had struck harder than any weapon. He remained calm. He remained silent once again. But silence now carried a threat more terrible than any roar. It carried certainty. It carried power. It carried the promise of destruction for anyone foolish enough to challenge Earth. The council sat frozen. The warlords, the conquerors, the rulers who had crushed thousands of worlds. They had never faced this before. A human had not begged. A human had not fought. A human had simply spoken the truth. And that truth terrified the galaxy. The council chamber had never felt so heavy. The human envoy had spoken, the human envoy hung in the air like a storm ready to break. The rulers had demanded Earth kneel. Even the bravest among the council felt it. And yet, they had demanded Earth flinched. They had threatened to erase it. He had only spoken the truth. They feared it. The golden-armored warlord beyond the stars, trying to regain control. Was alive with preparation. This is arrogance, silent, unseen, you dare to speak to us as equals. The humans on Earth did not need to threaten empires. They did not need to show their fleets or armies. His calm gaze cut through the hall, built weapons, sharper than any blade, and strategies the galaxy could never imagine. Measured, and all of it was hidden in plain sight. You call us weak. The envoy knew this. You call us emotional. He carried the weight of Earth's true power in his gaze. But do you know why Earth still stands? And the council could feel it. Do you know why no empire has ever conquered our world? Than any fleet. The rulers, the envoy began to speak again. They had asked themselves this question in secret. Humanity's strength does not come from numbers. An answer. It does not come from machines standing before them alone. The truth was about to come alive. Something far more dangerous. The envoy raised his hand slowly. His eyes scanned the room, letting the words sink into the alien rulers' minds. Humanity has faced extinction more times than you can imagine. They thought it was simple. Famine. They were plague. Humanity's survival was more than instinct. Entire civilizations rising and falling. It was an unbreakable determination that could turn even the weakest human into a weapon of unimaginable force. Some of the golden-armored warlord shifted uncomfortably. His claws could feel the weight of his words pressing down on your words. For centuries, they had mocked Earth. You are one planet. And for centuries, humanity had quietly endured. You cannot threaten the galaxy. The envoy's voice eyes narrowed slightly. Quieter. The galaxy has never faced humanity at its full strength to end us, he said softly, vanished. And you will not know until it is too late. Their armies fell in silence. Felt a shiver run down their spines. Were erased. They had faced wars. A shiver ran through the chambers, collapsing into dust. Clenched their claws. But something in this human's calmness was different. Some whispered to one another, unable to meet the envoy's eyes. It was the knowledge that was not had survived threats far greater than any the council they had buried deep in the shadows of Earth. A truth they had long quietly through orbit. He stepped forward. Ships were equipped with technologies unknown to the rest of the galaxy. The galaxy calls us weak, that could disable entire fleets in moments. You do not understand us. Strategies designed to turn the tide of war before it even began. You see our patience. The council saw nothing of this. You see our silence was a single fragile standing silently before them, letting the words sink into every corner of the room. The envoy stepped closer was louder than any roar. He raised his hand
the
slightly,
entire chamber
was holding its breath,
yet it commanded
the envoy
attention.
continued.
Do you understand
But Earth
now?
is not weak.
He asked.
Earth
Do
is
you
not
see why no
defenseless.
empire has ever
Earth is
truly
waiting.
conquered Earth?
And when we
The
are pushed
warlord's
too
jaw
far,
tightened.
when our world
The
is
six-armed
threatened,
alien
we will
whispered to his
fight.
neighbor,
And we will
they
fight like
have
no
survived
empire has ever
everything.
fought before.
How?
Some
The
rulers
envoy swallowed
swept
hard.
over the room.
Some glanced
He did
at
not
each other
answer
in
with
panic.
words.
The
The
golden-armored
silence said
warlord
more than
bared his
any
teeth,
explanation
trying
could.
to hide the
The
tremor in
humans
his
had
claws.
survived famine,
But the tremor
disease,
was real,
and war among
the
themselves.
fear was real.
They had
The
faced
envoy's
empires
eyes
far
narrowed
stronger
slightly.
and more advanced
He
than
spoke
Earth.
slowly,
and
letting
every
each
time,
word land
humanity
like a hammer.
adapted.
Do not
Every
mistake
time,
our mercy
humanity
for weakness.
rose stronger.
Do not
Every
mistake our
time,
patience for
humanity
surrender.
struck back
Do
when
not
the world
mistake
thought
our
it was
silence
defenseless.
for fear.
That
If
was
you
the
bring war
secret
to
no
our
one
world,
could see.
you will not
That
survive
was the
it.
shadow that
A
stretched
single
across
pause
the
followed.
galaxy.
The
The
chamber's
envoy's voice
voice
deathly
dropped lower,
quiet.
colder,
Even the wind
sharper.
outside the hall
Humanity
seemed to
does
stop.
not strike first.
Then the human raised
We do
his
not
voice
attack
just a
unless
fraction,
provoked.
calm but resolute.
Make no mistake.
This is humanity's
If you bring
final
war to
warning.
our world, if you
Test
threaten
us,
our people,
and you will learn
if you try
why
to
the
conquer
galaxy
Earth.
fears weak Earth.
He paused,
The rulers
letting the
could
tension
feel it
fill
now.
the chamber.
A sense of
We will
dread
fight.
crawling along their
And
spines.
the shadow of our wrath
For
will
centuries,
consume
they
everything
had
in
thought
your
they
path.
were untouchable.
The council felt
For
it.
centuries,
Not
they had
the
mocked
threat of
humanity.
weapons.
For
Not the
centuries,
threat of armies.
they had ignored the
The
warnings
threat of
whispered in the
determination.
shadows of space.
The threat of a people
But now,
who refused
the
to
truth
die.
could no longer
The
be
threat
ignored.
of a species that
Earth
had
was
already
not what they
proven
thought
it
it
could
was.
survive against
Earth
impossible
was stronger.
odds.
They
Earth was
realized
smarter.
then.
Earth
They were
was
no
dangerous.
longer rulers in this
And
moment.
humanity,
They were
humanity
observers
had
of
only
a
just
force
begun
they
to
could
show
not
its
yet
true
measure.
power.
The envoy
lowered
lowered
his
his
head.
He had
not
not spoken,
shouted,
and the words
had not
struck
raised his
harder than any
voice.
weapon.
He had only shown
remained
them
calm.
a glimpse of what
He
humanity
remained
truly
silent
was.
once again.
And in that
But
moment,
silence now
the
carried
galaxy
a threat more
understood
terrible
something
than any
terrifying.
roar.
Earth
It
was
carried
not
certainty.
Earth
It
was
carried
not
power.
defenseless. It carried
Earth
the
was
promise
patient,
of destruction for
and
anyone
patience could
foolish
destroy
enough to
even
challenge
the
Earth.
mightiest empire.
The council
sat frozen.
The warlords,
the
conquerors,
the rulers
and
who
rulers
had crushed
had never
thousands
felt
of worlds.
so powerless.
They had
For
never
the first
faced this
time,
before.
they realized
a human
that Earth
had
was
not
more than a
begged.
planet.
A human
It
had
was a
not
storm.
fought.
A
A
shadow
human had
rising
simply
silently
spoken the
across
truth.
the galaxy.
And that truth,
And when it finally
terrified
moved,
the galaxy.
no empire could stand against it. The chamber of the Galactic Council was suffocating. Even the largest of the rulers felt their confidence slipping away. The human envoy had shown them the truth without lifting a weapon. He had only spoken, and their arrogance was crumbling. The golden-armored warlord's claws clenched so tight that the metal creaked. He had laughed at Earth. He had mocked humanity. He had demanded obedience. And now, he could feel a cold dread creeping into his bones. He looked around the chamber. The whispers of lost fleets, vanished empires, and silenced warriors returned. Stories the rulers had dismissed as myths now loomed over them like shadows. The envoy's gaze met his, steady and unyielding. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was certainty. And that certainty was far worse than any roar of war. The envoy took a single step forward. The council fell into silence again. Every ruler, every conqueror, every veteran of countless wars, felt the weight of his presence. "You thought us weak," the envoy said, his voice quiet but cutting through the hall like a knife. "You believed we would bow, that we would plead, that we would surrender. You were wrong." The warlord gritted his teeth, trying to speak. But no words came. Even he could not find a lie to protect himself. The envoy's eyes scanned the room, resting briefly on each ruler. He did not need to shout to command attention. Every heartbeat in the chamber synchronized with the tension he carried. Every ruler felt their pulse quicken. "You have laughed at Earth for centuries," he continued. "You have called us weak. You have called us emotional. You have called us nothing. But your laughter, your mockery, will be your last mistake." A ruler with silver wings leaned closer to his neighbor, whispering, "Do you feel it? The weight, the certainty? It is unlike anything I have ever seen." The neighbor nodded slowly. "Yes. I think we underestimated them. Entirely." Even the golden-armored warlord could not hide the tremor in his claws. For the first time, he felt fear not of a weapon, but of a species. A species that had survived everything the galaxy had thrown at it. A species that had mastered patience and resilience. A species that had already outlived and outsmarted every invader. The envoy raised one hand slowly. "Humanity has fought against impossible odds.
We have faced famine, disease, war, and the void of space itself. We have seen our cities fall, our numbers diminish, and yet we endure. We survive. We adapt. We fight back stronger than before. The council could no longer laugh. The whispers of past empires' failures grew louder in their minds. Doubt crept into their pride. Fear began to bloom. The six-armed alien shifted nervously. He remembered the fleets that had vanished centuries ago. He remembered the empires that had disappeared. And now, standing before him, was a single human. And yet, somehow, it felt as if the weight of all of humanity rested in that calm, unwavering presence. The envoy leaned forward slightly. Do not mistake our silence for fear. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Do not mistake our mercy for surrender. If you threaten Earth, if you attack our world, you will face the consequences of every empire that underestimated us. And you will not survive. The chamber trembled not with weapons, not with engines, not with armies, but with fear. A fear that had been growing quietly for centuries. A fear of the unknown, the unstoppable, the patient storm that humanity represented. The golden-armored warlord finally spoke, voice low and shaking. What are you? How can a single planet, a single species, have such power? The envoy's eyes glimmered with calm fire. We are humanity. We are what you do not understand. And soon, you will learn why the galaxy fears us. The council sat frozen. The conquerors, the warlords, the rulers who had crushed thousands of worlds, felt the awakening of fear for the first time. They realized something horrifying. Earth was not weak. Earth was patient. Earth was prepared. And humanity was a storm ready to strike. The envoy lowered his gaze. His words were finished. But the fear he had unleashed would linger long after he left the chamber. The galaxy had laughed at Earth for centuries. And now, the laughter had died. In its place was a new emotion. A deep, cold, undeniable fear. Because humanity was not what anyone had believed. And the awakening of that fear had only just begun. The chamber of the Galactic Council was suffocating. The human envoy had spoken, even the largest of the rulers felt their confidence slipping like away. A storm pressing down. The human envoy had shown them the truth without lifting a weapon. No one dared mock. He had only spoken, even the bravest conquerors were trembling inside. The golden-armored warlord's claws clenched so tight that the metal something terrifying. He had laughed at Earth was not weak. He had mocked humanity. Was not defenseless. He had demanded obedience. Was patient. And now, humanity, he could feel a cold dread creeping into his bones. The envoy's eyes scanned the hall one final time. The whispers of lost fleets, he did not shout, vanished empires, he did not threaten, and silenced warriors returned. He only let his gaze speak. Stories the rulers had dismissed as myths now loomed over them like shadows. In that gaze was the envoy's the galaxy had never seen. Steady and unyielding. Humans had endured plagues, it was not anger, famines, it was not fear, and disasters it was beyond imagination. And that certainty was far worse than any roar of war. They had seen took a single step forward. The council fell into silence again. The council remembered the whispers of history. Every veteran of countless that vanished felt the weight of his presence erased. You thought us weak, that fell silent after challenging humanity, but cutting through the hall like a knife. They had ignored. You believed we would bow. They had laughed at them. That we would surrender. Now, the truth was impossible to deny. The warlord gritted his teeth, spoke, trying to speak, but deadly. But do not mistake our silence for weakness. Even he could not find a lie to protect himself. Our patience for fear. The envoy's eyes scanned the room, our mercy resting for surrender on each ruler. We do not strike first. We did not need to shout to command attention. We do not seek war. Every heartbeat comes to our door, synchronized with the tension he carried. Every ruler felt their pulse quicken. And every empire that tries to destroy Earth for centuries, he continued. Every fleet that attacks will be erased. Every ruler who underestimates humanity will learn the price of arrogance. But your laughter, a shiver ran through the council, will be your last mistake. Even the golden-armored warlord could not hide his unease. Leaned closer to his neighbor, Earth, whispering, he had demanded obedience. The weight laughed at humanity's weakness. It is unlike anything I have ever seen. He understood the terrible truth. The neighbor nodded slowly. Weakness had been a lie. Defenselessness had underestimated them. And the patience of humans, even the golden-armored warlord could not hide the tremor in his claws. The envoy's voice grew quieter. For the first time, every word felt fear not of a weapon. Humanity has survived extinction itself. A species that had survived everything the galaxy had thrown at it. We have outsmarted enemies far stronger than ourselves. We have
species
endured
that had
the
already
impossible,
outlived and
now
outsmarted
the
every
galaxy
invader.
will know why
The
no one
envoy
attacks
raised
Earth.
one hand slowly.
The silence that
Humanity
followed was
has
deafening.
fought against
The
impossible
rulers could
odds.
feel their pride
We have
cracking.
faced famine,
The
disease,
arrogance of centuries
war, and the
shattered
void
in
of space
moments.
itself.
The warlord
We have seen our
finally
cities
whispered,
fall,
almost
our
to
numbers
himself.
diminish, and yet we endure.
They cannot be conquered.
We survive.
They cannot
We
be
adapt.
stopped.
We
They
fight
endure,
back stronger
and they
than
destroy
before.
those who try.
The council could
The
no
envoy
longer
did not
laugh.
speak again.
The whispers
He
of
did not
past
need
empires'
to.
failures
His
grew
final
louder
warning
in their
had been
minds.
delivered.
Doubt
The
crept into
council
their
knew.
pride.
Humanity
Fear
was a
began to
force
bloom.
beyond imagination.
The six-armed
Outside
alien
the
shifted
chamber,
nervously.
the stars seemed
He
to hold
remembered
their
the
breath.
fleets that had
Fleets
vanished
across the
centuries ago.
galaxy remained
He remembered
still.
the empires that had
centuries,
disappeared.
no one dared
and
strike
now,
Earth.
standing before
Now,
him,
every
was a
ruler
single
understood
human.
why.
And yet,
It was not
somehow,
luck.
it felt
It was
as if
not
the weight
mercy.
of all of humanity
It was
rested
fear.
in that calm,
Fear of the
unwavering
unknown.
presence.
Fear of
The envoy
resilience.
leaned forward slightly.
Fear of a species
Do
that
not
refused to
mistake our
die,
silence
refused
for
to
fear.
bow, and
Do not
refused to
mistake our
surrender.
patience for
The
weakness.
envoy turned
Do
and
not
left the
mistake
chamber.
our mercy
His
for
steps
surrender.
were calm.
If you threaten
His presence
Earth,
was steady.
if you attack
And
our
yet,
world,
the entire
you will
council
face the
felt the weight of
consequences
his
of
departure.
every empire
Earth
that
had not
underestimated
raised a hand
us.
in aggression.
And you will not
Earth
survive.
had only spoken
the
the
chamber
truth,
trembled,
and
not
that
with
truth
weapons,
had shaken
not
the
with
galaxy
engines,
to its core.
not with armies.
The council
but
would
with
never
fear.
forget this day.
A fear that had
The
been growing
warlords would
quietly
never
for
forget
centuries.
the eyes of the human
a fear
envoy.
of the unknown,
The whispers
the
of
unstoppable,
history would
the
no longer
patient
be
storm
ignored.
that humanity
The
represented.
laughter that once
The
filled the
golden
chamber
armored
had
warlord
died
finally
forever.
spoke,
And
voice
somewhere,
low and
deep in the
shaking.
hearts of the rulers, a
What are
cold
you?
realization
How
had
can a
taken
single
root.
planet,
To
a single
underestimate
species,
Earth,
have
to
such
call it
power?
weak,
The
to
envoy's
challenge
eyes
it,
glimmered with
was
calm
to
fire.
invite destruction.
We are humanity.
The envoy disappeared
We are what you
into
do
the
not
corridors
understand.
of the council hall.
And soon,
and in
you
that
will learn
moment,
why the
the
galaxy
fears us.
understood why
The
no one had
council
ever
sat
attacked
frozen.
Earth. The
Not in
conquerors,
centuries,
the warlords,
not in
the rulers
millennia,
who had crushed
because
thousands
behind
of
the
worlds,
human smile,
felt the
behind
awakening
the
of
patience,
fear for the
behind
first
the
time.
silence,
They
was a
realized
force
something
no
horrifying
empire could defeat.
Earth was
And
not
that
weak.
force would endure.
Earth was patient.
Forever.
Earth was prepared. And humanity was a storm ready to strike. The envoy lowered his gaze. His words were finished. But the fear he had unleashed would linger long after he left the chamber. The galaxy had laughed at Earth for centuries. And now, the laughter had died. In its place was a new emotion. A deep, cold, undeniable fear. Because humanity was not what anyone had believed. And the awakening of that fear had only just begun.